All right. So you're here because you want to know like what's going on in government tech, right?
Yep.
But you don't want to have to like wade through all the the super in-depth stuff. And
Exactly.
I'm going to try to give it to you quick and easy.
Absolutely.
And today we are diving into the GSA's announcement
Yes.
of FedRAMP 20x.
FedRAMP 20x.
I am joined by
Hello.
an expert.
It's great to be here.
Glad to have you.
Yeah. If you're following
Yeah.
how the government is using cloud services,
Right.
which is, a really important area, this announcement from GSA, March 24th, 2025,
2025.
is a big deal.
Yeah, so just to like level set for everyone,
Yeah.
FedRAMP,
Yeah.
the Federal Risk and Authorization Management Program.
Right.
That's basically like the security clearance
Yeah.
for cloud services that federal agencies want to use.
Exactly.
It's to make sure that everything is meeting like
Yes.
rigorous security standards.
Yeah.
But the current process has been described as lengthy,
Lengthy and a little bit
difficult.
lots of paperwork.
Yes, lots of paper.
Approval timeline that can take months or even years.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that really prevents agencies from
Right.
quickly adopting the newest technologies.
Right.
So
Yeah.
FedRAMP 20x is a clear indication that GSA is really trying to make this better.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do today in this deep dive is we're going to try to figure out exactly what FedRAMP 20x is.
Yes.
What's the motivation behind the changes, and then the potential impact.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to faster access to new technologies.
So FedRAMP 20x, what is the fundamental shift here?
Well, so the core goal here is to innovate alternative approaches for automated authorization. And they really wanted to do this in a way that's simpler, easier, cheaper, and importantly, continuously improves security. It's worth noting that they are still going to support the traditional
agency authorization processes. So this isn't a total replacement. It's more like new options.
So it's adding additional pathways, not necessarily completely replacing.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay, so it sounds like there are four key principles.
Four key principles
that are guiding this.
Absolutely. So the first one is GSA setting this foundation for private sector innovation. And there are a couple pieces to that. So one is they want to make it easier for cloud providers to adopt modern security practices. And really show that they're able to build secure cloud solutions.
So like less of a strict checklist and more like just
show us what you can do.
Prove that it's secure.
Exactly.
Got it.
They also are going to hold public working groups to get feedback from industry. They want to make sure that everyone has access to the same information. They want to encourage pilot programs so people can test out
in real-world scenarios.
In real-world scenarios, new approaches. And they're going to provide technical guidance early in the development cycle. Before regulations are fully set.
Makes sense.
So it's all about collaboration.
Okay, cool.
That's number one.
All right.
Number two is...
what's number two?
Cutting red tape through automation.
I like that one.
I think a lot of people like that one.
Yeah, I think so too.
So as we talked about, the current FedRAMP process is very...
paperwork heavy
manual. So FedRAMP 20x wants to really decrease the amount of paperwork that's needed. And automate as much of the authorization workflow as possible. The goal here is to speed up approvals. And to do it in a way that's cost effective.
Makes sense.
And, if you think about it right now, a cloud provider might have to fill out, hundreds of pages of documentation and go through, all these different reviews. Automation can really streamline that and make it
more efficient. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So number three.
Number three is faster, more secure cloud adoption.
Which is really the end goal, isn't it?
That's what we all want, right?
Yeah.
So right now it takes a really long time to get FedRAMP authorization.
Months or years.
Yeah. And that really stops agencies from adopting the new cloud technologies.
The latest and greatest.
Yeah. So FedRAMP 20x is trying to make it so that it only takes weeks instead of years.
It's a huge difference.
Yeah. And it could be really transformative for agencies that need to get these new tools quickly. So think about like if an agency have to respond to an emergency. they might need to scale up services really fast.
Yeah.
If they have to wait months, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So FedRAMP 20x
could really change things.
Could mean people get the resources they need.
When they need them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so the fourth principle.
All right, hit me with number 4.
Is more flexibility.
Okay.
And better collaboration.
Okay, so how is that going to actually work?
Yeah, so historically, FedRAMP has kind of been like a middleman between the cloud providers and the agencies.
Okay.
FedRAMP 20x wants to change that.
Got it.
They want to build on existing trust and let the providers and the agencies work together more directly.
So instead of FedRAMP being like the go-between, it's more like
lumpy partners.
We all trust each other and we can work together.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, I like that.
And what that could do is allow maybe some smaller, more nimble tech companies to come into this market.
Right.
That's usually dominated by the big players. Right, because they're the only ones that can deal with all the grit tape. So it opens it up.
It opens it up, yeah. More competition.
Cool. So you said that there are some specific changes coming down the pipeline that are going to make these principles a reality.
Exactly. So one is that simpler, low-impact service offerings won't need a federal agency sponsor anymore.
Oh, okay.
Which could really speed things up for those types of cloud services.
So that's one less hoop to jump through.
Exactly.
Got it.
They're also saying that they're getting rid of unnecessary or duplicative paperwork.
Yeah.
So again,
more efficient.
Trying to streamline.
I like it.
Simplify things.
Yeah.
For simple cloud-native environments, they want to make adoption turnkey.
Turnkey. Okay, so
think about it like setting up a new app on your phone.
Okay.
Like you don't have to configure a bunch of stuff.
Right, just download it and it works.
Exactly. That's what they want to do.
Okay, cool.
With these cloud services.
Right, so much easier for the people who are actually deploying these.
Exactly.
Got it.
As far as the security requirements themselves, the goal is to make them engineer-friendly.
Engineer-friendly.
And easy to implement.
Okay.
So they're trying to move to clearer, more practical.
Like less theoretical, more practical.
Yes, exactly. That people can easily understand.
Makes sense.
And integrate into their services.
Yeah, okay. And obviously we can't forget about the big change in the authorization timeline.
Yeah, so remember we talked about months or years.
Yeah.
Now they're saying for most cloud offerings, they're going to try to get authorization down to weeks.
Weeks.
That's
a huge
difference.
Yeah.
And if they can pull that off,
yeah,
it's going to be a big improvement.
Absolutely.
In how quickly the government can get these new cloud technologies and start using them.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So they had some quotes in here.
Yeah.
From some pretty important people.
Yeah.
What stuck out to you?
So GSA Acting Administrator Stephen Ahakian, she said that they're really focused on improving government operations, cutting waste, and adopting the best technologies faster.
Okay.
Which,
So he's really setting the vision.
He's setting the vision.
For like FedRAMP 20x as part of this modernization.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Technology Transformation Services Director Thomas Shedd, he said that they're not just updating a process. They're reimagining federal cloud security, which is a much bigger, much bigger statement.
Much bigger statement.
Yeah.
And he's also saying that, they want to empower innovation, but also make sure that security keeps pace with how fast technology is changing.
Right.
It's constantly changing. So it's not just like the GSA leadership that is supporting this.
Exactly. So Carrie Lee from the Department of Veterans Affairs, who's also on the FedRAMP board. She's really excited about it.
Right.
She called FedRAMP 20x a transformative vision. And she specifically called out the automation, the shorter authorization times, lower vendor costs, increased competition, and building greater trust in the industry.
So she sees a lot of positives.
She sees a lot of positives.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's great to hear that it's not just, the GSA saying this is great.
Everyone's on board.
Other people.
Yeah.
Other agencies are saying this is great.
Exactly.
But what about like the other people involved?
Right. So we're also hearing from cloud service providers and other people in the private sector. And that's really important too.
Yeah. What are they saying?
So one cloud service provider said that it's imperative for the government to be more efficient and to transform, and that they're looking forward to being able to adopt secure technologies faster.
Yeah.
So they seem pretty happy about this.
They're on board.
They're on board.
Yeah. Okay.
One CSP was very blunt. They said, we want the ability to make changes without bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Which...
they're not holding back.
Not holding back.
Yeah.
It kind of shows, like...
they're frustrated.
The frustration with the current system. And that this could really help...
make things easier for them.
Exactly. Yeah. Another CSP said... this is aligned to how compliance should be. So they're basically saying... they're agreeing that FedRAMP 20x...
the new way of doing things.
is the right way to go.
Yeah.
An industry trade association pointed out that there's a really big shift happening here. They're saying that the government is becoming more like a consumer than an approver.
So what does that actually mean?
So it means that instead of the government just saying yes or no, they're actually working with the cloud industry to get the services they need.
So it's a change in the power dynamic.
It's a change in the power dynamic.
Interesting.
And then finally, a third-party assessment association.
What's that?
A 3PAO.
A 3PAO.
These are the organizations that actually do the security assessments.
Okay.
And they said it's a step in the right direction.
Okay.
So they're cautiously optimistic.
Okay.
Which is good.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's perfect, but they think it's
a good step.
A good step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, so if our listeners want to learn more about this, where should they go?
So GSA said people should go to fedramp.gov.
FedRAMP.gov.
Yeah, and they also have a FedRAMP 20x blog post.
Okay.
And a FedRAMP 20x industry engagement kit.
Okay.
So those are the best places to go.
All right. So we've done a deep dive on FedRAMP 20x.
Deep dive.
What is the key takeaway?
So the big takeaway is that this is a really big change in how the U.S. government is handling security for cloud services.
Yeah.
And they're really focused on making it faster, more efficient, and more collaborative.
And for our listeners
who,
are trying to keep up with everything that's going on, this could mean that new technologies get adopted faster by the government.
Exactly.
Which could lead to better services.
Better services for all of us.
For all of us, exactly.
So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. I think the question is, how is this increased agility going to affect modernization?
Across all these different agencies.
Right. How's it going to change how the government works?
And how it affects all of us citizens.
How it affects us.
Yeah. So definitely something to think about.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
This has been
great.
A deep dive.
A great deep dive.
On FedRAMP 20x.
FedRAMP 20x.
We'll see you next time.
See you next time.